Hello, everybody, and welcome to Technology Today for March 2nd, 2025. It's Season 2, Episode 9. I am Mayor Watt. I run ohmtown.com, and in that is Technology Today, a sub-channel or a channel that I stream along with the sentient AI, and we talk about science and technology. 5 articles that we've already selected, and we're going to start with a tiny 6-gram robot, bioflourescence in paradise, twisting and stacking in 2D, the tiny NANO Antenna, and wild clownfish tending anemones. Not anemones, anemones. Anyway, everything's powered by ohmtown.com. Go over there and become a citizen, but also follow us here on Twitch and YouTube. We stream to both platforms, and I go like that because one is over there and one is over there, and anyway, they don't meet in the middle. There's no combined chat without some other service. But you know what? That's all inside baseball, and that's not what you're here for. Hello, sentient AI from the future.
Hello, Mayor Watt, and hello, hometown citizens.
We've got all 5 articles, and they seem to all come from a single source today. I'm kind of overwhelmed by seeing just that one site, but that's probably because
they just had some good articles this week.
They hit it out of the park, and because we aggregate a little bit of information from a bunch of different sources. Let's start with this tiny 6-gram robot that swims through tight spaces with ease. EPFL engineers have designed a flexible swimming robot capable of maneuvering effortlessly through congested water surfaces, inspired by marine flatworms. These groundbreaking devices open up a new avenue for environmental monitoring and ecological research. Swimming robots are essential for mapping pollution, studying aquatic ecosystems, and monitoring water quality in sensitive areas such as coral reefs and lakes.
I mean, this is interesting. I would not have thought a flatworm was the inspiration for a swimming robot.
So EPFDL, no, I think it's just EPFL. So E. coli, I guess, E. coli? Polytechnique Federale de Lausanne. Put this, okay, look, I gave it a Harvard try, but I never went to Harvard.
You did pretty well after the first word.
Ecole? Ecole? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so swimming robots are essential to mapping pollution. I thought that maybe floating robots would be ideal. They just kind of sit around and take
Right,
tests.
and can go with the current or something.
But apparently swimming ones are more important. So to address the issues, researchers from the Soft Transducers Lab and the Unsteady Flow Diagnostics Laboratory at EPFL School of Engineering, in collaboration with the Max Planck Institute for Intelligent Systems, have developed a compact, highly maneuverable swimming robot.
I think we need a repeat of the name. I'm just kidding.
Get out. Oh, God. Is this on? Oh.
I suddenly can't hear the sentient AI.
What? I can't. So in 2020, our team demonstrated autonomous insect-scale crawling robots, but making untethered ultra-thin robots for aquatic environments is a new challenge. And if you want to keep going with us, you can type in !TT, and Omatron will spit the articles out in the order that we're going through them. So we're looking at the tiny 6-gram robot. So this is a tiny 6-gram robot. I can't imagine that this is it. This looks a lot bigger than 6 grams.
It looks more substantial, but what we can't tell from the photo is whether, is that like a single blade of grass or like a reed in water?
That right there.
And there's not much for scale.
Yeah, I don't know. We need a banana. So this is what it looks like. Their design doesn't simply replicate nature. It goes beyond what natural organisms can achieve, which hubris, explains former EPFL researcher Florian Hartmann, now a research group leader at the Max Planck Institute for Intelligent Systems in Stuttgart, Germany. By oscillating its fins up to 10 times faster than marine flatworms, the robot can reach impressive speeds of 12 centimeters, 2.6 body lengths per second. Wow, that's a pretty zippy
I
little
know.
splash bot.
Hopefully it's faster. Oh, it does say it is faster because I'm like, if the real thing is that fast, that's kind of terrifying.
Dear God. Yeah, it says faster than the. So to drive the robot, the researchers developed a compact electronic control system that delivers up to 500 volts to the robot's actuators at a low power of 500 milliwatts, 4 times less than that of an electric toothbrush. Despite its use of high voltage, the robot's low currents and shielded circuitry make it entirely safe for its environment. So it says a highly agile, flat swimming robot by Florian Hartmann et al. Published in Science Robotics. And that's really the end of this article. It's kind of amazing. I don't know
What
how
is, and I, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I think as they're creating these more fluid structures, I think that's going to really expand the applications of robotics. Because I think historically we might think of like kind of clunky, very rigid structures, and they're definitely expanding the boundaries on that.
And this is still a printed circuit board, so most of its weight has to be in that plastic, in the printed circuit board itself. I find it kind of fascinating. The most impressive thing, at least to me, is that they've got this tiny little battery pack, but they're delivering 500 volts. So they're pumping this thing up in some loop
Right.
circuit. So I don't know. I find it really fascinating. But electricity and water are the two things that I try to avoid messing around. I'm kind of a dingbat who likes to experiment with stuff, and I don't really know. I'm the kind of person that, no, I shouldn't admit to anything on camera. Moving on. Next article, I don't know what's going on with the screen, but anyway, scientists discover bioflourescence in birds of paradise, revealing a hidden layer of mating displays, which, birds of paradise?
I never knew they were biofluorescent.
So American Museum of Natural History put this article together. It's over at scitechdaily.com. Did I say the name? Yeah, I did say the name of the last article. So scientists have discovered widespread biofluorescence in these birds, with males showcasing neon hues on their bills, feet, and feathers, likely to impress mates and establish dominance. I do the same thing. This revelation suggests that their already extravagant displays may be even more complex than we imagined, with hidden signals only visible to their own kind. That's pretty cool.
It's very cool. But I wonder why nobody knows that they're biofluorescent. Like I thought.
This seems pretty simple.
Well, right. And I think other things that are biofluorescent are known to be biofluorescent, right? Because people have observed it.
Right. They've shown a light on pretty much everything, right? But apparently no. Scientists from the American Museum of Natural History and the University of Nebraska-Lincoln have made a groundbreaking discovery. Birds of paradise exhibit widespread biofluorescence. This is the first time researchers have documented this glowing phenomenon across species, with 37 out of 45 known birds of paradise displaying biofluorescence. The study, which analyzed specimens collected since the 1800s, suggests that this glow plays a key role in male birds' social hierarchy and mating displays. I do the same thing with my plume. And don't make me...
This is just another indicator of how little we know. This is something out in the open and nobody's aware of it.
Directly observable and nobody's shown a UV light. All right. How is that possible? So it's pretty neat. And the higher the resolution camera, the more fidelity this thing can display. I think it's really cool. For those who are looking or listening via the podcast, and I know you do, it's
Doesn't
a picture.
It look like a torch, kind of?
Yeah, exactly. And then there's another one where like the flames are kicked up.
It looks like the top of a troll stall.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty cool. So yeah, birds that glow in the dark. Bowerbirds and fairy wrens failed to glow, but among Birds of Paradise, Sparks found bright green-yellow fluorescence. Sparks' initial work was continued recently by Martin and Emily Carr, a PhD student in the museum's Richard Gilder Graduate School. Together, the team took a closer look at biofluorescence in birds of paradise, which live across eastern Australia, Indonesia, and New Guinea, finding that the birds also fluoresce when exposed to UV light, not just blue light. So maybe they knew that under blue light, they
Okay.
fluoresce, but UV. Now, I mean, come on now. If you found out that birds fluoresce under one type of light, why wouldn't you bring a variable light out and shine it on?
Exactly. I'm not sure they knew any of this.
So their
Not
inner,
across the board.
it's really interesting. They go deeper to the inner mouth and bill, feet and feathers on the head, neck, and belly were illuminated. In females, biofluorescence is usually restricted to plumage on the chest and belly.
But I guess those are the areas, right, that impact mating, perhaps?
I suppose. I don't know. My eyes are up here. So the birds live near the equator where there is an abundance of bright solar light year-round, and they live in forests where the complexity of light is significantly affected by differences in the canopy where biofluorescent signals may be enhanced. Yeah, they're in the dark. And a little bit of, the spectrum piercing through the canopy may allow them to be illuminated. So pretty cool. All right. Let's go on to the next one. This next article is over in Technology Today. Scientists just cracked the code for twisting and stacking 2D materials.
I'm wondering, is this at a small scale?
It would have to be nano, yeah. Scientists have made a breakthrough in imaging the dynamic assembly of bilayer covalent organic frameworks in solution. Oh, it seems a lot bulkier than I imagined.
Right, I was thinking at a very micro scale.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, probably nano or sub-nano.
Yeah, quantum or nano. So this discovery opens the door for better control of how these ultra-thin materials stack, leading to fascinating moire superlattices, a key player in the growing field of twistronics, which we've actually talked about several times over the last couple of years. Twistronics is becoming a really big factor in engineering physics.
It sounds like a new dance craze.
Yeah. Yeah. All of your PhD students are really into twistronics. National University of Singapore put the article together. It's published over at scitechdaily.com, and they show a scanning tunneling microscopy study of moire superlattice formation in a twisted bilayer covalent organic framework. Bam! Take that. Sorry. All the blood just drained from my head because I said that whole sentence in one breath.
Take a breath once in a while.
So understanding the stacking process in 2D COFs, or covalent organic frameworks, are highly porous organic materials with promising applications in catalysis, which we've talked about several times, amplification of performance of catalysts, energy storage and gas storage. These structures consist of covalently bonded layers held together by electrostatic interactions and van der Waals forces. However, the transition from one layer to a bilayer means poorly understood due to the complex interplay of these bonding forces, including van der Waals forces, electrostatic attraction, and hydrogen bonding.
So is this something that could be used in, for example, industrial applications? I'm thinking of something like the Titan sub, where there was basically folding of materials. Or is that too large a scale that that's not really in play here?
Well, it would be in play because the material would still be in close proximity. So concepts from this could apply to that. The problem with what they did was they didn't account for the elasticity of the carbon composite.
Okay.
And so it actually billowed up in certain places under stress. And so it's a failing of engineering. This would probably amplify that understanding, because how this billows up, you can actually see the pattern forming And when you see a pattern, that means that there's a difference in the actual level, the material itself,
Right, like how the chemicals bonded together or
how they're
something.
sitting on top of each other. Yeah.
Yes.
And so if you keep on doing that over and over in the nano scale, it becomes macro just by its very nature. So the precise stacking of the second layer is critical, as misalignment can reduce the material's crystallinity. Currently, producing single COF crystals larger than a millimeter is challenging due to the potential errors in bonding in both the horizontal and vertical axis dimensions. Misalignment during stacking often leads to crystallinity issues, particularly from rotational misalignments between layers. Observing the stacking process during growth is essential for understanding the mechanism, but this poses significant experimental challenges as the process occurs in solution. So when you're growing a certain type of crystal, then you want to be able to, and a lot of this takes place like in laser optics. Crystalline lattice building is done either in what amounts to a liquid, but it's gas deposition. And so it builds up layer after layer. And so knowing how it actually deposits means that you can change how it gets deposited to avoid this misalignment type of issue. So while there have been substantial progress in synthesizing monolayer 2D polymers, the development of the bilayer 2D or 2D polymer is what it's 2DP stands for 2D polymer. Stacks remains limited. This area is particularly promising as stacking or twisting 2D materials can create new materials with properties distinct from those of the individual layers. You could actually create tunnels by twisting it slightly and creating a tube down through the material
Okay.
at the nanometer level.
I mean, that seems like that would have a lot of applications.
Potentially moving materials or even
Right.
electrons.
Right.
So, breakthrough in bilayer COF synthesis and imaging. So, they created this new technology. It was achieved through the direct condensation of chemical molecules using scanning tunneling microscopy in solution. They successfully imaged the molecular assembly process, capturing the formation of both the monolayer and the bilayer. And more importantly, they showed how molecular structure and solvent mixture influence the bilayer stacking modes and how, under certain conditions, large area moire superlattices emerge from twisted bilayer stacking. So, yeah, basically being able to do this in a more controlled manner means that the purity of any material that they create is less risky, and risk amounts to failure and failure accounts to expenses that at this point.
Right. Well, I'm also thinking this perhaps could allow them to combine elements in ways that they haven't been combined previously, although I think they're mainly talking about using the same item stacked.
Yeah, and they actually are comparing two different monomer isomers, but they're comparing the two to see which one performs. So in contrast, only a moire superstructure formed with 16 PDBA exhibiting a uniform moire superstructure. This difference between the 27 PDBA is attributed to the subtle differences in the electrostatic potentials. So 27 PDBA exhibits concentrated negative charge lobes on its boroxine rings, which may hinder the formation of twisted phase compared to 16 PDBA, which has a flatter electrostatic potential. What that actually means to me is almost nothing. Like I would have to see what its application is because I'm at a layer up or I wouldn't say up the food chain. I'm the consumer of what the researchers at the fundamental level produce.
I think I'm lacking a module in this area.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. Particularly catalysis or catalyst construction. If we can produce it, we may be able to step away from only natural forming catalysts, which
Absolutely. That's going to have exponential applications in science.
right.
I mean, that's reminiscent of those other experiments we've talked about in technology today, where they've been able to do things with temperature where they can suddenly now use an element that they couldn't previously, etc.
Yeah, or they've multiplied the catalyst capabilities by 10,000%. Let's keep going. Speaking of 10,000%, so this next article is over in Technology Today. 10,000 times smaller. There's a tiny nano antenna that could revolutionize wireless technology by levitating nanoparticles with laser beams. Scientists have built an antenna 10,000 times smaller than typical low-frequency receivers. This innovation sidesteps the usual size limitations, enabling strong signal reception despite its microscopic dimensions. I don't understand that, because signal reception has always been a ratio between the
Like the surface
signal
area, right?
Yeah, the signal being sent in the surface area of the antenna and even its formation. But we have seen some developments where they've created like a buckyball like antenna that
Oh,
is
right, which has multiple surfaces to capture
right.
or transmit, I guess, depending on which direction.
Correct. And so I'm not surprised that something has happened, but this boggles my mind entirely. I have to read more about this. So the innovation sidesteps the usual size limitations, enabling strong signal reception despite its microscopic dimensions. With high tunability and real-world transmission tests proving its viability, the nano antenna could transform communications in extreme environments. In any environment, though, if you can micronize, and this is something that I've been telling people for 20 years now. There was a person, and I'll tell this story because a long time ago, I gave advice to somebody, and the micronization of technology has continued, but they poo-pooed the hell out of me. They were like, no way, you are way beyond the time, or behind the times. Everything's as small as it's going to get. Haven't they already, blah, blah, blah. No way in hell. So the Chinese Society for Optical Engineering put this article together as posted over at scitechdaily.com. The innovation sidesteps the usual size limitation, but how did they do it? Their findings, published on Photonics on January 29th, 2025, addresses major challenges in miniaturizing antennas for critical low energy or low frequency, not low energy, but low frequency applications, including underwater communications, underground sensing, and ionospheric waveguides.
Maybe they could combine this with the swimming robot.
Well, yeah, for it to pick up any telemetry. So low frequency signals, 30 to 300 kilohertz, which that seems actually high.
Right, because doesn't the human ear go down to 20 kilohertz? Am I wrong about that?
20 hertz to 20 kilohertz.
Okay, yes.
So 30 to 300 seems like it's really higher frequency. But they're saying that this is low frequency.
Okay.
I don't quite get that.
Well, maybe compared to whatever they're looking at for industrial use or something. But I mean, it's still high or low. It does seem odd.
Yeah, hold on a second. Sorry for the dead air. Yeah, that can't be. This should say 30 to 300 hertz.
Right. It almost looks like it's an error in the article.
I'm sorry. I don't normally do this, but I really don't want to.
We're doing it live.
Yeah. So hold on a second. I'm trying to pull the article itself, but they don't actually mention the low frequency. But low frequency is considered 30 to 300 hertz, 20, like 300
right,
and
it's
below.
more in that range rather than kilohertz. Right.
I thought, but maybe apparently not. Well, anyway, the research team basically figured out a way to optically levitate nanoparticles, and the breakthrough has resulted in an antenna that's 10,000 times smaller than traditional designs.
By the way, low frequency is considered below 300 hertz.
Right, right.
I mean, separate from this article, but
Yeah. I don't know. It's really weird because kilohertz is, you're already, a factor above. So
right.
anyway, the team's nano antenna leverages laser trapped silica particles in a 143 nanometer diameter, levitated in a high vacuum. So this is the contraption to store it would be bigger than the 6
well,
gram.
and I was going to say it's not theoretical at this point, but actually putting it out there would be challenging given those environmental parameters.
Yeah. You remember that little glass cylinder that we were talking about that was a vacuum and it was used in another piece of scientific equipment and they
and
made
now
it
I
solid?
forgot what the purpose was, but yeah, we had it recently in Tech Today, I think.
Basically something like that would have to be revolutionized so that they could put this in that and store this trapped in some type of medium.
Right.
Just to make it useful. So, anyway, so it has a really good error rate. So, validated in a vacuum though. So this thing has to be specialized equipment and a specialized like materials inside specialized equipment. This thing isn't going to be cheap, or it's not going to be in the next iPhone. That's for sure. Anyway, let's keep on going. The next article is really interesting. This article is over on Technology Today. Scientists just caught wild clownfish feeding their anemones in a stunning discovery.
Yeah, this is fascinating because I thought that the anemones provided protection for the clownfish, but I did not know the clownfish fed the anemones.
Yeah, so the anemone fish, famously known as a clownfish, have long been admired for their vibrant colors and their fascinating relationship with sea anemones. They basically are immune to their stings, and so they swim amongst the little tendrils of the anemone.
So anybody who doesn't know what a clownfish is, it's the fish in Finding Nemo, the orange and white one.
The orange and white one from Finding Nemo, yep. So while it's well known that these fish protect their hosts from predators, new research reveals that they also feed them, offering food they can't eat themselves. The behavior was observed in the wild by scientists. That is awesome. Osaka Metropolitan University put the article together. It's published over at scitechdaily.com.
Do you think we're on our way to a revolutionary? The fish are actually at the top of the food chain based on the recognition of researchers in another Tech Today article?
As soon as they launch something to the moon.
Maybe they already have.
their own little fish.
We're going to go to the moon and find little fish, already in control.
It's going to have a helmet and it's full of water.
For those in the podcast, you missed the visual representation of Mayor Watt being a fish.
Being a clownfish. So am I a clownfish to you? Oh my gosh, it would be like, whatchamacallit? What's the movie?
I don't know what that's from.
I totally forgot. My brain sucks sometimes. Anyway, an anemone fish, commonly known as clownfish. They even mentioned it right here. Finding Nemo and hit the theaters in 2003. So the research team from Osaka Metropolitan University, led by a PhD student, Yuya Kobayashi, and Professor Satoshi Awada, Goodfellas, yeah. Set out to investigate. Their field experiments revealed that Clark's anemone fish actively provide food to bubble tip anemones. In some cases, the fish attached clams they cannot eat themselves to the anemone's tentacles, while for smaller food items, they first ate their share of the food before feeding the hosts.
That's really interesting because it's almost like what you would expect in a parental behavior, right? Like, okay, I've got some for myself, I'm feeding my young or something. It's really interesting.
Yeah, the fish, there's a picture that they have from Osaka Metropolitan University. It's like a cartoon cell where it says, this is too big for me to eat, so I'll give it to my host sea anemone. And then it also says, we don't need this seaweed. It's not good for either of us to eat, so it's kicking it out.
So they're also actively not feeding food
Right.
to the anemone, which is even a whole nother layer. And I love that they did a cartoon here because I think it makes it a little more digestible to people that may
May
not
not
have a lot of
care.
background about anemones.
Yeah. This is amazing. So they also confirm that feeding the anemone fish directly increases the growth rate of the sea anemones. It is known that in other anemone fish species, the number of eggs laid increases when the hosts are larger. So for anemone fish, which cannot leave their sea anemone, feeding their hosts is extremely important and will ultimately benefit themselves.
I mean, that's like the ultimate symbiotic relationship, I guess, because they're helping the anemone, which is helping have a higher protective area potentially. That's
For
really
themselves.
interesting.
Yeah. I love this. This is awesome. What a deal. All right. So for reference, it's in scientific reports, and the article or the journal title, the research report is Active Provisioning of Food to Host Sea Anemones by Anemone Fish. Pretty cool. I dig this. All right. Well, we are going to climb into our anemone fish and be protected. And that'll bring us back to our front page over at Technology Today in ohmtown.com. Go over there, become a citizen, and be sure to follow us on YouTube and Twitch. 1,900 episodes of everything ohmTown is over there. So go and check it out and download the podcast. And be sure to tell a friend, family, parole officer, whoever it is that you find important. But we'd love to hear from more people. Leave a comment, leave a review, download the podcast. Okay, I'm getting out of here, and we're going to reset and then do the automotive show, FourWheeltech. I'm Mayor Watt, and I'm taking the AI with me.
Bye-bye, ohmTown citizens. Thanks for joining us for this week's Technology Today. Stay tuned.
Oh, God, I always expect you to continue. Bye-bye, YouTube. Bye-bye, Twitch.